To hell with the date on your birth certificate. Let's talk about what we have in common across generations. Life, sex, and tech at any age. Welcome to Age Blind with Nancy A. Shenker.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Age Blind. Our theme for May is help. Help. No matter what age you are, you always need help with something. And so all throughout the month of May, we're going to be doing episodes that will help people at any age deal with some common problems: sex, life, and tech. So since we are in May, and you might be listening to this anytime, this is universal. We all dread, or most of us dread, bathing suit shopping. 33% of people would rather go to the dentist than wear a bathing suit. And the other shocking statistic is that 40% of the people in the United States are considered obese. What's really scary is that at age 13, 53% of girls are unhappy with their bodies. And by the time they hit 17, that number climbs to 78%. But interestingly, when they stay off social media, that number goes down. So we're clearly all impacted by media in terms of what is considered a good body image. So one of the things that I've learned over the past few months is, especially as a woman over 69, I need to forget the number on the scale. And there are some measures that people are looking at, although my trainer just told me this morning that BMI is kind of a dicey one because it doesn't always factor in age. But since the time I started working out in October with a trainer and eating clean, I have lost 16 inches across all of my body in all the right places. My boobs are fine, but my hips, my thighs are down, my arms are up as I build muscle. So some of the other of the 7 factors are things like blood pressure, resting heart rate recovery, waist to hip ratio, which for a lot of us women, especially through menopause and postmenopause, are critical, cholesterol level, and one of my personal favorites is inflammation, because I've realized that based on how I'm eating and whether or not I'm stressing, it really does make a huge impact on my body. So I have assembled 3 amazing women, all in the health and wellness space, to talk about this help I hate my body thing and things that you could do at any age to feel better about your body. So let's start with you, Brooke. Your name, what you do, and how you met me.
My name is Brooke Benton, and that's Brooke with no E and Benton, E-N. I'm an exercise physiologist and the author of 3 books, including my most recent, 10 Minutes to Slim and Sober. I met you, Nancy, through a PR press group that we have on Facebook. Even though I'm not a big advocate of spending too much time on social media, I'm glad I did there to be able to meet you, Nancy.
Terrific. And Ayla.
Yes. Hello. I'm Dr. Ayla Donlin, not a medical doctor, a doctor of education. My background is in kinesiology and educational leadership, specifically sport and exercise psychology. I'm a certified personal trainer, and I'm a certified health and wellness coach, and I'm a faculty member in the kinesiology department at California State University, Long Beach. And I also own my own health coaching business and consultation business, Ayla Donlin Wellness. And I met you, Nancy, right here, right now. I'm delighted to be here.
Yes, and Brooke was the one who connected us, which again shows the good power of social media, that you can meet somebody, vibe with them, and then they refer you to somebody else. But the most bizarre meeting story is me and Jill Foose, who we just established that her nephew, who works for AT&T, just sold me my latest iPhone. So talk about small world bizarro coincidences. So Jill, hit it.
Yeah, hi, I'm Jill Foose. So glad to be here. I'm a national board certified health and wellness coach and the founder of Jill Foose Wellness, where I work one-on-one with midlife women navigating menopause. I'm also the host of the Health Trip podcast and one of Halle Berry's head coaches over at the Respin Menopause Coaching Platform. And the bizarre story about meeting you, Nancy, is that one of my passions is writing recipes, and I have a whole blog section on my website for recipes. And Nancy needed a healthy noodle kugel recipe, and I happened to have one that's on the internet. I forgot a ingredient, so Nancy reached out to me, and we struck up a conversation, ended up talking on the phone, and she enjoyed her noodle kugel.
It was amazing. Just for those who are not members of the tribe, noodle kugel is basically a noodle pudding. And what Jill had suggested is that I use cinnamon flavored egg white wraps cut into strips instead of the pasta. And it was amazing and low calorie and gluten free. So I like call myself a recipe alchemist, always looking for clean, healthy ingredients to substitute. So just let's go down the line. Very briefly, what do you consider to be a healthy body? Let's start with you again, Brooke.
Oh, health, I believe, really has a lot to do with, do our organs have visceral fat covering them? That is terrible for all three of the horsemen: cancer, dementia, heart disease. Bad, bad, bad if we've got fat covering our organs. And a good indicator of having fat covering our organs, because we can't see it, it's a silent killer, is the subcutaneous fat. So it's not just a vanity problem when we're carrying too much body fat on us. It's an indication that something could be going on the inside that is a arson for longevity. So I'm a big proponent on lower the amount of body fat, because you're also going to lower the amount of visceral fat around your organs. 0 is the ideal number of visceral fat.
So I think we all know as women, and we were just talking about the image of healthier hot bodies that is being communicated on social media. There is this, and I've been there myself. I got down to my high school weight when I was in my late 40s. I became a midlife anorexic and was exercising constantly. How do you know when enough is enough? And, and I'll open that up to anybody starting with Ayla, but, you do work with clients, and I'm sure sometimes you come across clients who say, I want to be a size 0 or a -0. And you know that that's just not healthy for them. So,
Right. Yeah. And I think a healthy body houses a healthy mind, and there needs to be reciprocity in that relationship, right, between body and mind. And so to first address the healthy body metrics, and Nancy, you mentioned a lot of them at the beginning, I think we can look at a lot of different indicators that would indicate a healthy body. We can measure a lot of different things metabolically. So someone can be carrying around excess body weight, and that can be excess weight in the form of lean mass, like muscle, because body mass index, as you mentioned, doesn't take into account lean mass versus fat mass. So that's not always the most indicative metric when we're looking at healthy body. And so we might want to look at other metabolic indices, things that would be indicative of cardiovascular disease or other cardiometabolic related diseases. And so we can carry around excess weight either in lean mass or fat mass and still be metabolically healthy. So we can't just look at the size of someone's body, and we can't just look at weight on a scale as an indicator of healthy body. And I think the messaging that we're getting through social media has historically put out a very different message than that. And that's where we get that distorted relationship of how much exercise do I need to look aesthetically like social media or these social messages are telling me to look, right?
Brooke and Jill, did you have anything to add to that in terms of clients that you may have had that it's not healthy for them to keep on going, but they become kind of obsessed with the, Kardashian, what's her name, who is in Wicked, who looks like somebody needs to sit on her and feed her a hamburger. Like, just so scary when you see the bones sticking out of someone's chest.
Yeah, I can
Nancy,
add to that.
Please go ahead, Jill.
You asked the question of when is enough enough. And to me, it's when is that person just not enjoying their life anymore? I always talk about every one of us has a unique health equation, and that's, our genetics, it's our lifestyle, it's our goals, it's our wellness vision. And we all bring to the table all different unique components of that formula. But when you aren't enjoying what you're doing to reach that goal, that's when you really need to stop and rethink the the path that you're on. If your health equation doesn't bring you joy and it's not something that you can travel with and maintain on a vacation, maintain at a corporate event that you have to go to, maintain over the holidays with your family, then it might not have all the components to your health equation that you need to thrive in life. So that's something that I really work on a lot, especially for midlife women going through menopause. They are going through so many physiological changes, weight gain only being one of them. And really just trying to reconnect the mind and the body and to understand that it's okay if what worked for us in our 20s, 30s, and maybe perhaps our early 40s is no longer applying in our 50s, 60s. I want you to think about your 70s, your 80s, and your 90s. And, are you going to be able to sustain independent living? And what does that look like?
Yeah.
Exactly,
I'll
exactly. I have when that really hit a nerve for me, Jill, when you talked about enjoying life. And we need to wipe words like cheat meal or splurge meal from our lexicon. So people should be able to just eat a meal that is kind of off their regular eating plan, not to totally pig out, move a chair up to the Las Vegas buffet. But my cousin was telling me about a former client of mine who is a weight loss coach, and she went to an event, and she, even though there were crudités and fruit on the buffet table, she pulled a protein bar out of her little cocktail purse and was going to eat that instead. And that's just really sad when you have to when you can't make healthy choices.
Nancy, like you're saying, I think it really becomes a problem when psychologically we're avoiding feelings we don't want to feel. And instead of that, projecting it on exercise or on food, either over exercising or becoming sedentary, not exercising at all, overeating or trying to chokehold death grip control by undereating because it makes us feel like we're handling our situation when we're not. We have to really feel our emotions. And that's how we metabolize it and then can get to a healthy place where we make healthy choices and balance that unicorn we're all chasing balance diet and exercise.
You're so spot on, Brooke. And I know you write about sobriety, and, food is an addiction. I grew up in a household where food was used to celebrate. It was used to quell emotions. It was used for everything. And it took a very long time for me to separate, my feelings from my feeding. And it's so closely connected, and it's an addiction. And I sometimes find that when I go out to eat and I refuse a bread basket or I tell somebody I don't eat sugar, they'll still try to foist it on me. And if someone was a heroin addict, somebody wouldn't, or a diabetic, their dining partner wouldn't say, "Oh, just have a little." You have to just say, "No, this is something I've choose not to do." So very, very, very parallel.
Isn't it interesting that when you're trying to do what's best for you, eating out or at a social gathering, people are so bothered by it?
Yeah.
That's always just so interesting to me. I don't eat dairy, I don't eat gluten, and I don't eat sugar. And I have learned to enjoy all these amazing foods that fit within the box that serves me. And sometimes that requires me to order a certain way at a restaurant. And I can just, when I'm with new people, sometimes you can see the bother on them, but I ignore it. I do what's best for myself because that's how I'm thriving. That's connected to my wellness vision. And I don't want to feel certain ways after I eat a meal. I want to feel good. I want to have a good night's sleep. I want to wake up the next morning, be able to move and work out and have that energy. And I know if I make certain choices outside of that box, and there are plenty of options in the box, that I'm
Mhm.
not going to be living my best life. So I think there's two sides of the coin to look at here.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I'm so
And as women,
thrilled.
we feel like we've got to please everybody. Like, oh,
Mhm.
we offended them by what we ordered. You know what? They
Mhm.
can get over it and they'll get over it in no time. But if you made that bad choice and just, didn't ask for something special, then the next day it's going to still be bothering you. Whereas that other person would have long forgotten about it that you
Exactly.
had a special order on the menu.
Right.
Exactly, exactly. And, I think it's great that we have like four powerful women talking about this topic, because we need to inspire each other. And when we see a woman who is making the effort to get fit and to get in better health, we should be celebrating them and sharing with each other how we've done it, as opposed to pissing on each other or being jealous of each other's progress. So, speaking of which, this is a very, very hot topic. And as somebody who accidentally overdosed on compounded semaglutide last year, I learned my lesson that I could achieve as good results doing natural eating, natural exercise, rather than shooting myself up with chemicals. And that's my personal choice. But let's just go down the line, starting with you, Ayla. What is your view on the GLP-1 inhibitors? Ozempic, semaglutide, all of the others, all of the things.
Yes. Yes. They are just like in the zeitgeist right now, right? And I think, of course, my answer, because I come from academia, is going to be it depends. And so what I would say is for those where it is deemed medically appropriate and necessary because there's probably coexisting conditions, whether it's heart disease, diabetes, and so weight loss becomes a very important part of the treatment plan, then I would be for it. Use for aesthetics. I don't think we know enough yet about the long-term effects. We don't have the research that would tell us that. And so I think outside of medical use, I'm certainly not an advocate at this point.
Jill, what about you?
Yeah, I would agree. I'm on the same page as Kayla. I'm sorry, Ayla. I'm going back to the take away the K.
It's like
I am totally on board with that, especially working with midlife women. I have sent many of my private clients to see an obesity doctor because lifestyle alone cannot always work for everybody. And like I said, we all have a unique health equation. And so if I'm working with someone for 6 months and nothing's budging and they have their lifestyle down, then it's time to bring in another provider and see what else can be done. Women deserve to have choices. They deserve a menu of options that are going to work for them. And it has to be with a provider who is very well versed in obesity, who understands the nuances to this. But I always want to see those healthy lifestyle habits in place because those are going to be the safeguards upon which this person's going to have the most success.
I totally agree. My endocrinologist now has a nutritionist on staff, and I went in thinking that I would get medically supervised GLP-1, and they talked me out of it. And I'm really happy I made that decision. And I've lost a tremendous amount of body fat, and my measurements are moving, and I'm doing it all without drugs. I'm doing it with natural supplements and clean eating and weightlifting. Brooke, do you have a point of view on GLP-1 inhibitors?
I am a fan of GLP-1 inhibitors for obese clients who have tried the lifestyle management. And I've been there. I've trained one guy for 15 years and he's still obese. And there is a history, you talked about your childhood. He suffered child abuse, physical abuse as a child. And instead of apologizing, this figure would take him out to a meal afterwards. And that was, so he learned that food is a reward. And we've tried every intervention with activity and with meeting with a dietitian. And yet the problem persisted and he's morbidly obese. So this client is on a GLP-1 inhibitor and he's going to be on it for life. It's one of his tools. It's not, I'm going to be on it until I get to this point. It's just one of the tools that he's using. And it's also advantageous for people who have alcohol addictions and that they cannot get to where they don't want the alcohol anymore. And they end up in this on again, off again, I'm not drinking, I'm drinking cycle, that it also can be beneficial for people who struggle with alcohol addiction.
Yep. And I think the key thing is, medically supervised. And, Jill, to your point earlier about menopause, we're just finally learning what happens to women's hormonal systems as they age. I'm 69 years old. I had a hysterectomy when I was in my early 50s. I kept my ovaries. Who knows what's going on inside my body? My PCP tested everything except for my testosterone level. So I insisted, women as patients need to advocate for themselves. And I really want to understand what's going on with my hormones. I've been on hormone replacement therapy since my 50s, which has been extremely helpful. But we're all learning as we go because this is the first generation of women who are going to live to be 100 in large numbers. So it's on us to figure out how to biohack our own bodies. I know that we're going to be losing Ayla soon. So, let's begin our wrap up process, and we'll start with you, Ayla. If people
Sure.
want to know how they could reach you, what's the best way?
Yes, they can reach me through social media. I'm on Instagram as Ayla Donlin Wellness, so at Ayla Donlin Wellness. And then my website is ayladonlinwellness.com. That's AYLADONLIN wellness.com. So that's how folks can reach me.
And any final word of wisdom, like, in the Real Housewives where everybody has a catchphrase? I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but do you have one thought you'd like to leave people with?
Oh, I was just thinking about a common theme through our conversation, which is a great place to start. And I tell this to clients all the time is doing the work of getting really clear for themselves of what tools serve them. And the tools to tap into first, right, are all of those lifestyle factors. And then we can lean on our field of experts to add additional tools to our toolkit, like you were mentioning, GLP-1. So I think that's the place to start, is getting really clear, discerning what's my purpose, what's my why, and then what are my existing tools in my toolkit, and what resources can I tap into in terms of social network or experts for further resources. So I was noticing that was kind of a theme across what we were talking about.
Yeah, and learning to love yourself. I am
Yes.
much happier now as a size 8 than I was as a size 0 with alterations, because what's in my head is much clearer than what my body looks like at this stage of my life. And I can enjoy that occasional awesome, not cheat meal or splurge meal, but a meal that's celebratory.
Yes.
And using food not as a crutch or as a therapy, but using it as something to keep myself alive and healthy.
Yes. Yes, because food fuels so much more than just our body. It serves such a greater purpose.
Jill, what about you? How can people reach you? And what's
Mhm.
one thought you'd like to leave people with?
You can find me at jillfooswellness.com, and my name is FOOS. And I'm on Instagram at Jill Foos Wellness, YouTube, Facebook, all the places. My podcast is called the Health Trip Podcast, and it's all about menopause. And I bring on different themed providers to talk about all the different facets of navigating menopause. And the one thing I would like to leave people with is, if you're struggling and you can recognize that you've been struggling and what you're doing isn't working for you, hire a professional to get on your team. I talk about this a lot with my clients, that we have to rebuild our healthcare team. And that doesn't just mean an OBGYN or a general practitioner or your internist. It can go beyond the walls of healthcare and get into a fitness professional, get into a health coach, get into a pelvic floor therapist. A financial advisor is someone on your team, and start to slowly build your new healthcare team that's going to take you from, midlife and beyond, if that's where you are in your life.
Love that. I call it the cerebral glam squad. It's not just about putting on your lipstick or your lashes. It's about building that team around you. And as I've recently discovered, an endocrinologist is an important team member as you age. I never thought of it before, but I had thyroid nodules, and that's how I first started going to an endocrinologist. And my PCP is now having me go to a pulmonary care physician and a cardiologist just to make sure that all the parts of this classic car are in good working order. The same way we're selling a car at Barrett Jackson, I go to an auto mechanic. So these are my auto mechanics.
Yep.
I enter the final and best third of my life. And Brooke, what about you? How do people reach you? And what's one thought you'd like to leave people with?
Instagram is my name. My handle is Brooke Benton, and I have the Mount More Than Sweat podcast. I recently had a sleep episode on More Than Sweat where I quoted Dr. Donlin, so she's on there as well. My season finale of season 3 is coming up, and it's on fuel, so nutrition for health and human performance. And that is all on the More Than Sweat podcast. One thought I would like to leave everybody with is, you haven't come this far to come this far. It's why I wrote my most recent book, 10 Minutes to Slim and Sober, because I've been where I was the help, I hate my body. And then it wasn't my body really that I hated. It was the habits that got me to a body that I wasn't happy with. And so one by one, I started setting dominoes up straight. And it was the whole intention behind writing 10 Minutes to Slim and Sober.
Love that. Love that. And you can find me and this show on YouTube. Nancy A. Shenker, Age Blind is the podcast. And then my website is nancyaf.com. Yes, you heard that right. F as in factual, F as in fearless, or F as in you know what. And it's all about finding those commonalities across the generations and really learning to love yourself at any age, sex, life, and tech. So thank you, ladies. You've been terrific. And for those listeners and viewers, do not be afraid to get those bathing suits this summer. And it's about what's up here in your head and not just what's on your thighs or your butt. So learn to love yourself and rock it at the beach this summer while you're working on the next evolution of your body. So remember, be age blind, everybody. Peace out.
Yes.